Hey everyone, it's Lindsay, and I want to show you how I decorated my Craft and Desert Divas treat bag. Now, I used the brand new rainbow die set on this as well, so I am going to die cut this rainbow die from all the different colors of the rainbow. So I'm starting out with red, and then I'll go ahead and move on to orange, all the colors of the rainbow. Now I'm using my big kick here. These are wafer thin dies. They work with most die cutting machines. Just make sure that you use the sandwich that you would use for any other wafer thin die that you might have. So I'm also using the cloud from that rainbow die set, and I'm going to cut that from some white cardstock. So once I had my clouds cut, I cut two. I went ahead and I cut my treat bags that I needed. So I'm making 2 treat bags. So each treat bag you need 2 die cuts. So I needed to make 4 die cuts. So I'm doubling up here. Now, whenever you double up here and you cut 2 pieces of cardstock at once, you're not going to get as deep of the embossed lines on that second die cut. I don't mind doing it that way because I go back and I add deeper embossed lines anyway with my bone folder and my paper trimmer, so it's not that big of a deal to me. If you want those deep embossed lines, go ahead and die cut 1 piece of paper at a time and then run it through your die cutting machine like you would an embossing folder with your embossing pad underneath that to really get those nice embossed lines that you need for folding. Now I'm also using that scalloped rectangle from the treat bag die set, and I'm going to cut that from some white cardstock as well. So once I had those scalloped rectangles cut, that's as much die cutting as I can do for now. I will come back and do more later, but for right now that's all I can do. So I'm going to move on to assembling the treat bags. Now when you cut these treat bags, you do get nice embossed lines, and you can go in and fold them from that. I like to come in and add an even deeper embossed line with my bone folder and my paper trimmer, just because it makes my creases nice and sharp this way, and it makes it easier on myself in the long run. So I like to do it this way. You can by all means skip this step if you want to. This is just something extra I like to do personally. So I'm adding all those embossed lines with my paper trimmer and my bone folder. I just line it up, give it a nice embossed edge with that, and then I'll come back in and fold these all and make the creases nice and sharp with my bone folder as well. So you can see in this next part, I've actually taken both die cuts, put all the lines in there with my bone folder, then I just fold them back and forth, once back and once forward, and really sharpen those creases with my bone folder. Again, you can skip this step. It already has embossed lines on it when it comes out of the die cutting machine. This just makes it easier on me when I go to fold up and put my treat bag together. It just makes it easier whenever I try and do that later on. So that's why I like to take this extra step. So I'm just going to put in these extra little crease lines here. And on the center embossed lines, where it actually has where the bag kind of folds up on itself, I like to use my fingers and just give it a nice little pinch, and also right up into that little triangle. I just like to pinch it with my fingers and get it as good of a crease as I can with it that way. So you can see I'm just twisting it back and forward, pinching it with my fingers up until it meets that point, and then I'll go ahead and do the same thing on the longest crease line there, just right until it meets that point of the triangle. So now that I have all of my scoring and my creasing done, I can go ahead and start adding some adhesive onto this and putting it together. So I needed 2 die cuts to make 1 treat bag, like I said before, and now I need to put adhesive on each one of these die cuts. So on this first one, I'm going to put it on that largest flap at the bottom. I'm also putting it on the smaller flap at the bottom, and also that side flap as well. I like to use score tape. It's a nice adhesive that holds strong, and it's quick, so I don't have any dry time. Now on this second die cut, I'm just putting on the side flap and the smallest flap at the bottom. I don't need it on that larger flap on that second die cut. So I'll go ahead and take off adhesive from that larger flap on the bottom, and then I'll just line up those 2 bottoms and give it a nice press so they stay together. Now that's going to be the bottom of the treat bag. You want to make sure you have a flap on the right side and one on the left side. So just make sure whenever you put that together that you can fold up on both the left and the right. You don't want both of your sides on one side of the bag. If that makes sense to you, just watch the video and see how I do it if not. Now on this next side, I went ahead and removed the adhesive on the bottom flaps, and then I'll just fold both of those up to make the two sides. And then I've got both of those longer flaps on the sides that I need to remove the adhesive and adhere them to the front and the back panels of this Treat Bag Die. And you just want to make sure those are nice and lined up with the sides, and then give it a good press so it stays together. And then I'll do it on this other side as well. And this is why I make those crease marks. This just allows me to really put that bag together quickly and to make sure that everything is lined up nicely whenever I have those crease lines in place. It just makes folding and bending and twisting that bag to put it together a little bit easier for me. Now I've got that ready to go. You can see it cinches up nicely at the top, and you can always put the handle in that as well if you wanted to. On this particular bag, I didn't. Now on this next part, I need to go ahead and put that rainbow die together. Now I'm making two bags here, so I needed two rainbow dies. So I'm going to be doing two of these at once. I've got two pieces of scrap cardstock, and I am just laying on these rainbow pieces in rainbow order. So I started out with the red, I'll go to the next sized arc, which will be my orange, and so on and so forth. I'm using glossy accents to hold these down. I like it best, it dries quickly, and it also allows me just a little bit of move time just so I can line up those ends nicely and make sure everything's fitting together properly. So I'm moving on to my green arcs here, and I'll just put both of those in place, and then my blues and my purples. Now, like I said before, I'm making two different treat bags here, and I'm making them both the same, but they're also just slight differences as well. So on that treat bag I made before, I didn't put handles in it, but you can see in the photo that I did actually do a treat bag with the handles, the same design. It just had handles on the top, and it does work perfectly. So if you like that look, you can always include those handles as well. Now I went ahead and I finished up putting on all those arcs, and then I just need to trim these out. Allowing that white cardstock behind these different colored arcs just keeps the whole thing together and makes it one piece, which I need it to be in this particular case because I'm going to die cut from this rainbow later on. So I'll just use my scissors and fussy cut around each one of these rainbows so it's just one solid piece. But I do have all those colors in the rainbow so it looks like an actual rainbow. So moving on, my next step was to actually stamp on each one of these little scalloped rectangles that I had made earlier. So I'm going to go ahead and use the Simply Said stamp set, and for this one I'm stamping on the word smile right in the top right hand corner, and I'm using black dye ink. Now on the second one I actually used a new stamp set that hasn't been released yet for that sentiment, so you'll have to see that one in the photo. Now I'm going to use those two rectangles and put them on the side of the rectangle that I had made the tag from. So the first thing I did was even up and sharpen those ends. Then I'm just going to place it in the top left hand corner, mark where it meets that stitching line on the bottom center there, and then I'll just put this in my paper trimmer and chop off that last end that I don't need there. Now I'm actually going to save that end, and I will die cut from it to make a nice little rainbow tag as well. So that's just another way you can use your rainbow die too. You can die cut from it. So on this particular rainbow that I went ahead and die cut to fit the tag, I'm going to go ahead and apply some adhesive on there. Peel off the backing paper. I am using score tape. You can use a liquid adhesive if you want to. It'll give you a little move time, but I don't mind score tape in this instance. So I'm going to go ahead and place that down and line it up right in the top left hand corner, and there it fits that nice rectangle and inside the stitching perfectly. Now I want to pop this entire panel up onto that treat bag, so I'm using some fun foam and some double-sided adhesive on the back of that scalloped rectangle, and then I'll just place that right in the bottom of that treat bag. And you can see on the top there is room for the handles if you do want to die cut in before you put the treat bag together. Now on the bottom of that rainbow, I'm going to add that cloud that's in the rainbow die set. I've applied some fun foam to the back of it, and then I'll just pop that up right on the end of that rainbow for some nice dimension as well. Now I said before I am going to die cut from that little leftover piece I had from my rainbow that I put together, and I'm just using a tag from the Treat Bag Die. I die cut that from that little rainbow, and there I've got a nice little tag that matches the treat bag perfectly. Now I do want to cinch the top of this bag together, so I'm going to use my hole punch at the very top, and I'm just going to put 2 little holes right in the center of this treat bag die, and that's going to allow me to thread some baker's twine through that and to attach that tag that I made on there also. Now you could use twine, ribbon, whatever you have on hand or whatever you think looks best. I'm going to use some black and white baker's twine. I'll just come up from the back of both of those holes and one end through each of the holes, and then I'll pull them tight through the front of that bag. I'll go ahead and thread this tag on, and then I'll just cinch it very tightly and tie a bow on the front to finish off this bag. And of course, you'll want to fill your treat bag before you end up tying it together like I am here. And you can fill it with anything you want. You can fill it with stamps, little candies, baked goods, whatever you want to do. This is a nice size treat bag, so it works well with a lot of different things. Once I did have my bow tied, I just went ahead and trimmed up the ends of the baker's twine so they weren't quite as long. Now I did make 2 of these treat bags at once. So on the right hand side, I did a few little different things. I did add the handles in the top, and I also die cut that extra little tag. I die cut the star tag from that same treat bag die set. And I also put on a different sentiment as well. But that finished up today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and as always, I leave you with a few pictures of the finished bags. So on the left hand side of the screen, you're going to see a few different links you can choose from. The top will take you to a video that you might enjoy watching next. The bottom left is the supply list for this project, and the bottom right will subscribe you to my channel. Thank you guys so much for watching today, and happy crafting!